back to the channel. My name is Crawford and this is Virginia's for Lowriders. I don't really know what I'm doing right now. Just kind of wandering around because the ADD has been so real today and I haven't been able to concentrate on anything. We're trying to scramble and make this sound system work that we started to put together last week. I've been coming out here pretty much every day except for yesterday because that couch magnet got me. Pretty much every day trying to get something done. I got the dashboard put back together. I got the RCAs ran under the carpet. I've been coming up with some ideas as far as mounting the amp rack, and I think I have it figured out. I think I have an idea on how I want to secure the sub to the cab wall. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know if you've ever been here before, but we are building an 80s Mazda pickup truck. There are a ton of videos on this truck on YouTube in a folder that you can watch from beginning to end and binge watch them. I've had a lot of people tell me it's very binge worthy. So if you've never been here before, go check that out because there is a ton of content. In that content, we go over bagging and body dropping and sheet metal work, custom interior, custom engine mods, you name it. We're pretty much doing it, and we're finishing up the sound system that goes along with that. We have some 3D printed stuff that we came up with this week. I have some really cool ideas that I want to throw in here, and hopefully they work and the truck doesn't end up sounding like total garbage. But whatever we do has to sound better than what we had before, because what we had before was terrible, and it was some old, dry-rotted Rockford and Fosgate stuff that's probably older than I am. So we are getting into it, and I just need to stop rambling and start making some stuff because it's already 9 o'clock on Saturday, and I keep doing this to myself, and I don't know why. So we need to hustle, get something done, and hopefully play some music by the end of this video, because that was the goal last week, and it didn't work out. So last week, I left off with saying that I wanted to 3D print. Well, actually, I said it a lot. I've said it like 10 times. I just never found the time to do it. I wanted to 3D print some speaker grills. I have one immaculate grill, which is this one, and then the rest of them have either a lot of missing stuff or they're just cracked. So after attempting to print PTG, if you have any 3D printer guys on here, on my printer that I've had for the last 2 years, it just wasn't working out. So I had my buddy Rodney throw it on his printer, which is significantly newer and significantly nicer than mine. He printed out a PLA first, which I did get a good version of that on mine. And so far, this is the best one that we have. So this is actually a file that you can purchase offline, side by side, just a glance. They look very, very similar. It's actually a pretty good design, like as far as copying. It's not, the file's not quite as smooth, so there might, regardless of what material I print this out of, I'm still probably going to have to sand this and paint this. So this is the first iteration of this. This one will not be used because I do not have the logo centered 100%, but you can see it has Virginia's for Lowriders and the little state. There's a little design that I came up with to add to this, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I'm going to have to, of course, print this out of a better material that won't melt in the sun, and I probably have to sand this with 220, 320, whatever it may be, to get the ridges out of it and make it 100%. But for a rough draft, I'm happy with this. It fits very well. It is, again, this is a file that you can purchase offline for $5 if you have a printer and you can print it. And it is very, very similar. I kind of see myself redesigning this in the future and just changing the pattern and everything to something that I like a little better. And I will be adding my logo to that again also. So we're going to install this and I'll show you all what it looks like in the truck. I think I might run over this just so it shows better on camera. I'll run over this with a silver Sharpie or something so it can actually stand out and you can see it a little better. But I figured I'd throw it out there and thank Rodney for making me one, even though I should be able to dial my printer in and figure this out for some reason. It's just not working out, which is no big deal, just a little bit of extra time and trying to squeeze that in there with everything else that I get straight away with. This week, I did have the quick connect hookups on the bottom of the box. That way the box can be easily removed from the truck if need be. And I did come up with an idea for the box that I'm gonna try tonight probably. And I think it'll work. Pretty sure it'll work. Hopefully it's a cool idea and hopefully it works out. Before I show you all this, I was very satisfied with the way it looks. I ordered some RCAs that were significantly shorter than the stuff I had. I had 3-footer ones, and I bought 6-inch RCAs. I've never heard of this brand, but it had really good reviews on Amazon, and 6-inch was the choice. It very satisfying to plug in. I don't know if y'all go through all of that, and I don't know. We'll look at it. The hookup is super smooth, super clean. I don't have a 4th channel, so I won't be using these guys. And this will be the inlet. But when this is mounted in the truck, like so, all of my adjustments will be easily adjustable, just leaning the seat forward. This guy will be at the top to where I can actually get to it. And this is turning out pretty good. After many hours of pondering, I think I came up with an idea of how to mount this to the truck and make it to where this isn't a floppy, noisy wind maker thing. I'm going to make this design slightly scaled down. So if you took this and shrunk it 1.5 inches all the way around, transfer that onto a piece of plywood and mount this to the plywood. But when it's mounted to the cab wall, my hopes is it kind of looks like it's floating there. I don't know if it's going to work. That's the idea. There's going to be a whole lot of those this weekend. I don't know if the speaker grill is going to work after sanding. That's the idea. I don't know if my mounting of the sub idea is going to work, but that's the idea. Same thing for this. I'll explain my idea. Here we go again. For my sub box. So at work, we have scissor lifts. We rent tons and tons of scissor lifts. And they have these things that go on the bottom of them called diapers. And what those diapers do, they are leak containment systems. So it's just a big tarp blanket thing with soaky pads attached to it that straps onto the bottom of a scissor lift or a boom lift or a forklift or anything lift. The diapers are attached by these. They are just, if I had to guess, because I've never purchased them for that specifically individually, I would say this is probably a 35-pound magnet. It has a lot of strength. If you put it on something that's thick, it's pretty stout. So I took this idea. I actually have these on my toolbox, which is supposed to have a hook on it also. I have these on my toolbox at work. Instead of drilling holes in my toolbox and adding hooks to where I can hang up my hoodie when I get there in the morning, or jacket, or whatever it is in the wintertime, I put these all over my box with a little hook. These are 75 pounds, and you can get these off Amazon. So my idea behind this is I took the little hook out. I would like to take this, figure out what size the inner stud is, drill a hole here, and mount this to the box by bolting it on the inside of the box. I think that, considering this is contoured to the floor, it's the exact same shape as the floor, when the box is set in place, I really don't need anything for it to be like rigid mounted. It doesn't really matter. All I need to do is stop it from falling forward into the seat and having the sub touch the seat. So I think this extremely strong magnet being mounted at the top of this thing will stop it from moving side to side, up and down, and forward. So that's what we're going to try. So we need to pop a hole in this guy, and then after that's done, we can wire up the sub, wire the sub to the box, and just set the box in and hopefully not mess with it until it's time to carpet it, which I haven't figured that out. I don't know exactly what I want to do. Carpet would probably be the most era-ish correct. I would really like to find a speaker grill to cover this up because I don't care to see logos. I've never been a brand person. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm looking for a mesh grill to cover this like old setups used to be. If I can find a mesh grill to match the mesh speaker grills that we put in last week, I think that would be very cool. But I haven't found those online yet. And I also need to figure out the excursion of the sub so I don't buy one that's too shallow. Everything in my garage is a workbench except for my workbench. It's just a catch-all. I'm going to do a test drill here to make sure that that thing fits in there snug. It's a good thing I didn't decide to paint the truck beforehand, and it doesn't really matter what happens right now. Oh yeah, that is a very good fit. So I should be able to take my bolt, put a little washer on there and some Loctite. I think this is gonna work out good. Right there looks good, right? Precisely measured before we started. Throw in some of that. Hopefully it never comes off juice. Oh, get all over my finger too. Man, I cannot hold on to anything today. So, not bad. Doesn't really stick out too much. I say the magnet's strong enough to keep the box in place while it's inside of the cab of the truck. I think it'll be alright. I don't know if it'd hold the speaker in there with it mounted like that, but I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that'll work pretty good. I think we're gonna go with the heat shrink bolt-on method rather than the spade connectors on this. So I'm just putting it out there. I am not an audio guy. I've put a lot of systems together for all of my own vehicles. So the knowledge that I share is personal opinions and personal things that I've experienced and the ways I go about doing these things. I am not an expert. This is not my main form of things I do to vehicles. Just throwing it out there. Speaker's pretty straightforward. These are your friend. I recommend you buy one because if you have cheap stuff and you're unsure, say you buy it secondhand. I bought a lot of stuff secondhand for a lot of years because I didn't have money for a long time. So ohm everything out so you are 100% sure that you're not going to burn up your amp. This is a dual voice coil, 2 ohm on each coil. Subwoofer. I want to make this subwoofer wired to 1 ohm on that amp because that amp is 1 ohm stable. So I'm double checking, even though the sub is labeled. I know I bought brand new stuff. I'm just throwing it out there. It's for just in case you don't know. Say you bought some stuff off Facebook and you got a crazy good deal on it, but the guy said his amp kept going to protect mode. Most likely it was because he didn't wire something correctly. It happens to all of us, especially in the beginning. When you're first trying to learn these things, it's good to know the basics. I'm just throwing out the basics. So don't come after me, audio guys. Just throwing it out there. If you're unsure, say you bought this off Marketplace, you're just curious, it doesn't have a little 2 on there helping you out. It's as simple as turning your meter to the correct ohm setting, which a lot of meters, like this one, has a lot of different ranges of ohm. If I go down to here, it'll tell me a roundabout number. It'll get me close. Just make sure you're reading the right thing. We got 2, which is correct. Dual 2. Again, over here, we get 2. We want to wire this down to 1, so that should be positive, positive, negative, negative. Jab those guys in there. Come to your lead. One. And that's what we're looking for. That way, that amp can deliver as much power as it possibly can to this little guy. That amp will overpower this, but we're not going to adjust it to where it's going to burn this thing up. Because at 2 ohms, it's in between. Either we're going to deliver it too much, or we're not going to deliver enough for this little tiny sub to produce anything worth even putting it in the truck. So we're going to go with, right off the bat, a little too much. We're just going to turn the amp down. Now we're going to mount the sub with the very, very tight tolerances of my box that's undersized. Again, not ideal conditions here with the body drop on a single cab truck, especially a traditional body drop. We're going to have to mount the sub at a peculiar angle here. So we're going to have to do something along the lines of mounting it like this. But first, I'm going to get these guys bolted up. I'm going to take these little tabs off of, this is the second one of these that I had. Take these little tabs off and just use these nuts rather than this, just so I know there's no way that these things are going to come apart inside of the box. This was a 2-pack. I got these, again, something off Amazon. They were like $6 for 2 of these. I don't have high hopes for them, but they had good reviews, and it seems like I base a lot of my decisions off of reviews of strangers. My seasonal allergies are kicking my butt. But here we go. This is what we got. This will be, it'll still line up. It'll be nice and secured. I don't see that going anywhere. Mount that guy back in the box and get this sub mounted up. One trick that I do, and I've done it for a very long time, don't just come in here and just go to town holding this. There's a high risk that you're going to stab that surround and then you'll be crying. Just put your hand on the box. You can bounce off there all at once. This thing isn't going to hurt you. You can run it all over your hand without getting cut up. So, screw in. No way for it to hurt you. No way for it to hurt the sub. Now, if you have one of these with burrs all over it, maybe. But good quality bit, nothing's going to get hurt. The magnet found a pair of pliers, apparently. Pretty sweet. It's the moment of truth. I think that's gonna work. Like it takes some effort to pull it away. I actually need to take the sound deadener off there because it's actually hitting that sound deadening. Well, after beating on the sound deadener for a while, it takes a lot more effort to get that off than when it was on top of the sound deadener. And you can actually see the sheet metal flex as it's coming off, so I think that'll work. I think that looks pretty good in there. Of course, I gotta still wire up the other side, but I need to run wires for the sub over there and vacuum all of the remains of that sound deadener stuff. I've never seen sound deadener made out of like fiberglass. I don't know what it is. Probably asbestos. You're probably gonna see me on a mesothelioma commercial here soon. I think I'm gonna make these cuts and then I'm gonna go inside because it is like 11 o'clock and I should really not be doing this outside. It is the next day. I was out here for a while. I ended up making this thing completely. It looks a little weird. Again, not a woodworker guy, but I routed the edges and tried to make it as fancy looking as I could, even though you'll never see it again because it's mounted behind the amp rack. But this has clearance for all the bolts. So this will bolt to the truck. This will bolt to this. I went to Lowe's this morning. I bought some little spacers. I actually ended up buying the wrong ones. I tried to order them off Amazon, but I couldn't get them in time because I completely forgot about it. But they were 3/8 spacers. Now they're 3/8. Apparently these are judged by the outside, and I didn't realize that. But now they fit a 1/4-inch bolt. So the plan is I'm going to remove the amp and the DSP. I'm going to raise them up, put these little spacers underneath each foot, and from there the bolts that will hold this to the wood will be underneath these things to where you're not going to see anything. Everything will just be, this is all you'll see. So when I'm doing all of that, it'll be these little button head guys, and these will be just underneath the amp, which there'll be tons of clearance with the spacers in there. I also purchased, while I was there, some 1/4-inch T-nuts. These T-nuts, you drill a hole in the wood, you tap these T-nuts into the wood, and it makes it to where the wood is then threaded to where that thing will bolt to the wood and be completely secure, and I don't have to worry about it. So now I need to put this up against the cab wall, mark it, drill it, put riv nuts in the cab wall, mount this to the cab wall, mount the T-nuts to this, and then the amp rack to that, and then put the amps back on this, back on that with the spacers. It's the whole process. And then we can just throw some wires in it and make sure it works and get that satisfaction. Because again, I'm running out of time and it's Sunday, and I wasted a bunch of time yesterday and today dealing with new washer and dryer because I'm tired of fixing my washer and dryer. I've had it for like 10 years and I've dumped so much money into it. I'm over it. So I bought some new stuff for the first time in my life. It's pretty exciting. It's like grown-up stuff, which sucks. I'm tired of being a grown-up. Being a grown-up is expensive, and I would much rather do non-grown-up things like dump money into my mini truck because that's way cooler. I jumped ahead a little bit. It's getting kind of late. So I drilled and recessed each one of the holes that mounts the board to the wall. You can see the stud sticking out there. There is 4 of those T-nuts mounted in the board. So this will now get bolted to the 4 riv nuts that are in the cab wall. I'll throw that in there real quick. looking pretty good. I'm liking how it's turning out so far. I probably shouldn't have put so much of a crown on this. It almost makes it look like it's in there crooked, but all of the actual things are level. The way I cut that, it looks a little off, but I'm liking it. So now I need to basically lay on the ground and hook up all of these speaker wires, the RCAs, the bass knob, and I need to come up with some kind of power. I've never ran a breaker on an audio setup. I've only ever ran fuses, but I might give a breaker a shot since I have a bunch of them. So that's the plan. We're gonna chip away at this. This is kind of boring, so I don't know if I'm gonna record it. So before we get into the sound, this is what I came up with. We went with a breaker. This is a 100 amp breaker. This amp requires a 100 amp fuse. Hopefully this all works out. I've never ran a breaker on an audio setup, mainly because the power in and out on these things are tiny, and it's hard to find ones that are large unless this thing gets really, really big. But this was a perfect opportunity because this little guy doesn't require very much. But overall, it's looking pretty good so far. I still have some wiring to clean up under here. I still have to figure out how to attach the carpet to the floor. But I think we're looking pretty good so far. I'm happy with it. Well, we're jumping forward about, I don't know, probably 3 hours, but it is producing noise. It does get pretty loud, and it does sound pretty good. I am not familiar with DSPs. I've never ran one before. I watched a couple videos, and I don't see the setting in my DSP that they show for a crossover for the sub, so I'm still getting a tiny amount, even adjusting the amp, which you're, from what I've seen, you're supposed to adjust everything on the DSP. Even adjusting on the amp, I still get some like highs out of the subs. But with that said, it sounds pretty good. And that little sub in that little box is very surprising. I thought that that little tiny box would choke out that sub, but it's not the case. But the interior is all put back together and looking pretty clean. Got the head unit installed, trim rings in place. It looks pretty good. It's sort of the look I was going for. Not sold on that head unit. I'm going to be looking for a retro one. There's a couple that I'm looking into. I just haven't made up my mind. There's a few options, so it'll probably end up with what I guess they consider them retro style. They're made to look old, but they're actually Bluetooth head units. But it's looking pretty good. I'm going to mount the bass knob in the ashtray. This is the way I have it on my Lincoln. And I enjoy it there because you can actually just shut it and not see the glowing light. The Lincoln has like a pack style in there, but regardless, I like the placement of it. And when you're just looking at the dash as a whole, you don't see it. And if I didn't have my little switch box up there, it's era-ish correct. I did run a Sharpie across this, so y'all get a better idea. Again, I do plan on making this and smoother. But the sub is installed, the DSP is installed, the amp is installed. Still got some tuning to do. Overall, it sounds pretty good. It gets pretty loud. I am very impressed with that little sub. The highs are crisp. Again, still have some tuning. I have a song I'm gonna play. It has no vocals. I got it from a website that said that they're not gonna copyright claim this, and I'm not gonna get any strikes on my account. If I end up having to mute this part of the video, I will mute it, and then I will make a short with sound clips, which I'm probably going to do anyway. That way y'all can actually hear songs that people know through the system, because I don't think I can get copyright claimed through there. But we're going to try this. It's like just a random rock song off some website that said that there's no copyright. So I'm going to attempt this. This is the first time I've tried to add background music into a video. It's a little different than adding some music to a video, if that makes sense. But let's see. So, see if this GoPro picks this up. surprisingly, the little sub has enough bass to it to shake some stuff on the truck, which sounds like probably distortion on camera, but overall, it's really not bad. It's kind of weird not having door speakers in something, but because you can't really get the full effect. Opening the doors just makes it doesn't really change anything as far as sound outside of the truck, but overall, it's really, really not bad. Hopefully YouTube doesn't strike that, and adding that to this will be a success. But I am 100% out of time yet again. It is like 7:40, I think, on Sunday, and I try to have these videos up by 9, which probably isn't going to happen again. So I apologize for that. I appreciate y'all watching. Sorry the last little bit of the video was kind of rushed. I was running out of time again. I just got to stop doing this to myself. But next week, we are going to be getting out here yet again in the garage. We need to work on that. I have a show in 2 weekends from now. It's a hot rod, rumble, rat rod. It's a local-ish show. Again, it's about an hour drive. I haven't charged the batteries in that thing in like a year. I have some bad solenoids. So there's a couple things that we need to do to that to get it on the road. And we need to start pushing the Caprice into the cycle here, because I'd really like to body drop it this winter and show the other side of the hydraulic community, because they get a bad rep in the mini truck world. Everybody's afraid of them for the way that they ride, and there's a lot of like things that people think that are wrong with that type of setups, and I would like to use this time to prove that that's not right. That car rides better than a factory vehicle. That's all I'm trying to say. And we'll be talking about that, hopefully body dropping that. We'll be getting back on the truck. I have an air cleaner idea that I came up with that I want to attempt to make it fit the truck. So maybe next week we'll do a little bouncing around. We'll try and get some maintenance done on that guy. We'll try and do some modifications to this guy and keep that ball rolling. Yeah, I'm rambling, and it's late. I appreciate y'all watching. Don't forget to do all the normal YouTube-y things, and I will see you next Sunday.